to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
All right. Well, happy Friday night. This is the Robinson and Wright Show coming to you live right now from KLRNradio.com. I am one half of the crew, Mr. Big Robinson. I have with me this evening the other half of the crew, Mr. Dan Wright. And we actually have a guest. And before I bring the guest on, I want to kind of lead off what we're going to be talking about at least a little bit today for the show. There is an old quote that when you are young, if you're not a liberal, it means that you are heartless. When you are old, if you are liberal, it means you are a fool. Our guest, actually, during a conversation right before we went on air, said that being liberal is a mental disorder, and I happen to kind of agree with that statement. But we'll let him get into that a little bit more. Dan, since you've spoken to him before, I'm going to let you say the name because I don't do well with.
It's Dmitry Nazarov.
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to butcher it. So.
I met him through a group that I'm in. That is trying to get Austin Peterson to run for the Senate in Missouri, where he's from, and we met each other, and Dmitry grew up in USSR Russia, and he's here now, and he's an American citizen, and his upbringing pushed him to conservatism here for many reasons, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. He's seen the fruits of socialism into communism. He lived it, and he's a very interesting guy, and I think it's going to be a very interesting show.
All right, so without further ado, we do have Dmitry with us this evening. Good evening, Dmitry. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Rick. Good evening, Dan. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And then I really appreciate that you moved so fast on that proposal that I made you when I said, hey, do you guys interview anybody? I said, well, what do you have? And so I sent you a sample of the interview that I did with the Rise of Liberty podcast. And you replied basically right away once you listened, said, we got to have you in as soon as possible. When can you do it? And I said, well, what do you have? I said, well, next Friday would work. I said, let's do it. And here I am.
Yeah, I listened to that interview, and I mean, it had me, I mean, I had a 2-hour ride home from work that night, and I listened to that interview the whole way home. And your experiences growing up, living in USSR Russia. I mean, growing up, it's pretty amazing. And I think especially a lot of the young people today, really do not understand what socialism is and what it does. And I mean, if you could give our audience a little bit of background on what your upbringing was like in Russia.
Sure. Basically, I grew up in half of my life. I grew up in USSR, then Russia, then another half I lived here. So actually, this is 2017. I moved to US in 1997. So in October 21st, there will be exactly 20 years that I lived here. So this is, for me, basically I can see half and half. Now, talking about my life, basically I grew up in Siberia. So out of all the places, when they say that isn't that place where they send bad people? Well, I was born there, so like they say, born to be bad. I grew up more to the end of the Soviet Union, right before the collapse, and of course, in Christmas Eve, 1991, Soviet Union was dissolved. So I was living through, the perestroika, if you remember, perestroika glasnost at the end of the USSR and the first several years of the new Russia. And so I was preteen and teenager and young adult through all those years. So it made a tremendous impact on me, mainly because how socialism, which I called, this is my definition of socialism. Socialism is an immoral political ideology of violence, theft, envy, and greed. And when you take that ideology to its full development, you get something like USSR, like Cuba. I've been to Cuba a couple of years ago, like China. I've visited China before, and some other places. Most socialist countries actually don't exist anymore. They've changed to something else. We still have 4 socialist, well, they call them communists, but there is really no communist countries. If you really understand what communism is, there's only 4 socialist countries left. Of course, there's Bernie Sanders that talks about the glories of Nordic socialism. Well, they're not socialist countries. I've been to Nordic countries many times, have good friends there. This is not socialism in any way, shape, or form. They have a lot of welfare mentality, which we have here. They are much more advanced in that area, but it doesn't mean it's better, because any time you impose on people socialist measures, you reduce their freedom, but that much. And that's you have to understand. It's the only balance you can have. So you can try to balance it out, but eventually it will either go broke or you have to go back. Like in Sweden right now, in other Nordic countries, they actually elected a conservative government in last few elections because they figured out that their economy is not going to be able to survive through the socialist ideology.
That's exactly it. It's the more you pull from not just the people, but from the businesses that are driving your economy, the more we see it here already. I mean, businesses just leave the country.
Yeah. The funny thing, I apologize for interrupting you, because once you said leave the country, the only thing really that anybody knows about business in Sweden is IKEA, right? I mean, you don't hear about any specific innovations or specific businesses beside IKEA, the furniture store. And so the owner of IKEA actually left Sweden because of socialist policies. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Yep. He couldn't handle it anymore. Now he's in like his few years of his life. So now I guess he doesn't care anymore about making money. So from what I read recently, he's planning to go back to Sweden and die in Sweden. But most of his life he actually lived outside of Sweden just to avoid the socialist taxation.
Very interesting.
You were gonna add something, right?
No, I just said I had no idea that he actually had left Sweden either. But it's interesting that now that he's made all the money that he can, he wants to go home and die in his home country.
Yep, that's actually very funny. You know, that I foresee the same thing happening. As you know, one of the Facebook founders, he actually renounced U.S. citizenship and moved to Singapore because it's much more freer country for business and it's much better taxation scheme, because he became billionaire basically through Facebook. And so for him, he was saving millions, if not billions of dollars just in taxes alone. And so he decided it's not worth being an American citizen. So he renounced it and moved out. And many people are doing right now because, like you said, you can already see not just businesses leaving, but actually individuals are leaving the country, renouncing their citizenship and moving somewhere else.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more, and people talk about it. I live in North Carolina, and we spent a lot of money under our former governor to keep Freightliner here, Daimler, who is a German company. They own Freightliner now, and one of the major businesses in North Carolina is Freightliner, and they wanted to move to Mexico. And we spent a lot of money to keep them here, and they are actually a client of mine in the business I do, a fairly large client, and we kept them here, and we kept the jobs here and everything else. Well, with everything going on, and it was getting to the point where they were getting ready to leave again. And maybe at this point now, everything has stabilized because I see much more work going on at their facilities with my company. But with the state of how things were with Obama, and even with a little bit with how things were being portrayed with Trump, it was very worrisome here in North Carolina. Now that Trump is in office, it looks like things have stabilized a little bit, but there was still talk of them picking up and leaving. And a lot of people said, that's horrible. It's an American company. Well, it's not an American company. What really does Daimler have invested? I mean, it's a German company now. Biggest truck manufacturer in the United States, but they're owned by a German company. Daimler could just say, we don't really care. Let's get up and move. And that puts thousands and thousands of people in North Carolina out of business. And I think there's incentives there now for Daimler to stay, because they were ready to leave again. They were absolutely ready to leave again, and it seems like it's stabilized.
And I understand it very well. Here's the thing with socialism. Like I said, as I grew up in socialism, and as I got older, I started thinking through everything they said and everything they did and everything actually what came out on the other end. This is what I see happening, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Everything they say they want to do, the way they want to do it always produces the reverse results. When they say we want to help poor people, actually poor people become poorer. When they say we want to help black people actually becoming worse off. When they say we want to punish the rich, actually rich get richer. It's just whatever they say, whatever they're trying to do. We're against the war, and of course, more wars are happening. We are for peace and tolerance. And as you just seen recently in Berkeley, actually more violence is breaking out. That's how they are. The way I see that ideology, and I call it regressive left. And the reason I call it regressive left, because we've tried it in Russia 100 years ago. In fact, it's 2017, so exactly almost 100 years ago. That's when we had the Russian Revolution, out of which USSR came about. And so, of course, they also had all those ideas. Let's make everyone equal. Let's make everyone care for each other. Let's make sure that nobody exploits anyone. But in the end, actually, everything came out in reverse and even much, much worse. So these ideologies, this regressive left ideology, I call them like a locust. You know, like locust goes from place to place and consumes and destroys everything. That's how regressive lefts are. Let me give you a quick list. I just was thinking about it. So just take words out of our dictionary that regressive left took, and they changed it from something that was actually good and conveyed some good message and turned into something evil. Number one, of course, liberal. I'm sure that you guys, if you think about it, if you do remove the regressive left connotation from word liberal, you probably will say, you know what, I'm liberal as well. What does liberal mean? It means you're for freedom. It means you're for liberty, for individual liberty, for making the government smaller, to get everybody just to live as they please. Just don't get into my business, don't attack me, and I'm not going to attack you. That was the original meaning of the word liberal. Well, of course, regressive left, they took that word, and now that means almost borderline mental disorder. Let's take another word, socialist. The word socialist in itself is not a bad word. It means that we are caring for the community. But guess what? When they took hold of that word, now the word socialist means many horrible things. It doesn't mean anything good. Another word is word progressive. Progress is good, right? It is. We don't want to be regressing. We want to go forward. We want to advance. We want to do things in a different and better way. Progress is great in technology. Progress is great in many different ways. But of course, when they took hold of that word, now progressive means absolutely different, and it's very negative. Communist. Even the word communism is not an evil word in itself. It means community. Community is good. But of course, once they took hold of that word, just like locusts, they destroyed as well. Next one is social justice. We hear right now a lot about social justice warriors. And because they took social justice in itself, it's a good thing. We want to have justice. We want people to take care of one another, not to abuse one another. But again, once they took hold of that, now it means completely different. Sharing or fair share. I mean, they took a word sharing, which is an amazing word. I teach my children how to share, how to be generous, how to take care of one another. Of course, sharing right now and fair share means completely different. It means the government will come to you, put the gun to your head, and take away your possessions. Next one is they took all the negative words actually that actually meant something. Take word racist and other words that people actually they were concerned if someone would call you racist, especially in America. It's a horrible thing to be called racist. While regressive left took hold of that word, that they overused it to such a degree that right now actually racist means as someone who won an argument with a liberal. So that's a basic definition of word racist, you know. And next one is tolerance. Great word. Tolerance means that we accept one another, that we allow one another to express themselves. Of course, they took hold of that word. Now tolerance means completely different. Peace. Peace supposed to mean coexisting together in harmony. Now they took hold of that word, and peace means completely different. And the last but not least is word love. As you notice that how they were chanting and still chanting love trumps hate, they even destroyed the word love. And so for me, I have an absolute disdain for anyone who subscribes to the immoral ideology of socialism, which is theft, violence, envy, and greed. That's all it is. If you really look at it, if you dissect it, if you take a microscope and you really look at where it comes from, anything they say, anything they do, anything they try to accomplish comes from those four horrible things: envy, greed, theft, and violence.
No, and you're absolutely right. And I started re-identifying myself as a classical liberal.
That's what I was talking about.
It absolutely throws people. I mean, people will actually tell me, "Well, you're a liberal. It says it right in your bio on your social media account." No, I'm not. I am. I am a liberal. I am. That's they stole the word.
Yes.
They stole it.
And like locusts, they destroyed it.
That's why I do not like to call them liberals. I've taken to pretty much just calling them leftists. That's what I call them. Because I don't like calling them progressives either. I will to get a point across, but they're not progressive.
No, they're not.
They're retroactive is what they are.
They're regressive left. That's the best definition that actually describes who they are.
Yeah, it's pushing the narrative back, and they don't realize it. That's their problem. They push the narrative backwards. I mean, feminism too. They stole feminism. Feminism was women's rights. It's not women's superiority. It's not what it is. And it's the original feminist movement was correct. It was right. Women deserve equal rights. I get that. They don't deserve if you do not have the same capability or ability as the other person, you do not deserve the job. That's just the way it is. That's the way the world works. And there's plenty of women out there that prove that they do have the superior capability. People like Oprah Winfrey. I mean, she's one of the most successful people in the world. That's proof. That's feminism there. Feminism isn't you need to hire me above him even if I don't have the same the same, anything. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I know women that have been in the military and are currently in the military that do not believe that women should be in combat. They just do not believe they should. And they're in the military.
Yeah, I understand this 100%. Let me turn it a little bit the other way, because like I said, I consider them locusts in so many different ways. They really behave like locusts. They always look like locusts. They look for a place where they can devour. We just talked about words. They also look at movements. It's an interesting thing. Every movement they took, they devoured. Like you said, feminism, slavery. There's so many unions, etc., etc. Did you know they hated those movements before they transformed them? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Unions, for example, you can read socialist writings. They hated union movement, socialists, until they finally figured out they actually can come and devour it and turn it into what they want. They hated feminist movement. But then they took hold of that. Even fighting against slavery, it was Christians. If you really look at most of the movements, social justice movements that actually their birthing was actually from Christian either philosophers or ministers. So original abolitionists were Christians. They were preachers, especially there was one, the famous one, you probably heard of him, Charles Finney. One of the founder of Oberlin College, or president of Oberlin College in Ohio. one of the great evangelists, the great ministers, and many others that are not as famous, were the original abolitionists that were pushing for abolishing slavery. And who was the slave owners? They were Democrats. That was the Democratic Party. Republican Party was founded specifically to fight Democrats and the slavery. Abraham Lincoln, he was a Republican. So if you look at that, they always look at those things. They fight something, but when they realize they cannot fight anymore, they invade and they consume. And so that's just what happens with every single movement like that. Same thing in Russia. Russia, if you look at if you're interested to study, you will see that there was a social movement was before the revolution. There was a movement to get more freedom, to get more openness, to get everything different, because Russia was just so much behind. There was so many things that need to be changed. And I read some of the ministers that were ministering those days, and they said the same thing: the change must come. Well, guess what? Once the socialists like Lenin and Trotsky and others, once they figured out they can jump on that horse and ride it, that's what they did. And so then they destroyed everyone who was actually part of the movement. That's the whole thing about Bolsheviks and Mensheviks, which is in English means the majority and the minority. So when Bolsheviks became the majority of the party, minority, they said, guys, we don't have to go there. We need to bring liberty. We need to bring justice. We need to bring democracy. The socialists said, we don't want that. We want to go to this utopia, what they call communism, when everyone is equal, when everyone is basically under the government thumb. And so after the revolution, they took over. This is actually the only time any countries I know was actually communist, but it was not really communist. It was military communism. They actually forced everyone to share. It forced everyone to be so-called equal. So, and that's how they do. They look at different movements. So right now, as you notice, they figured out that transgender movement is a big deal. So they jump on that bandwagon. And right now, with Muslim immigration and all the situation with Muslims, have you noticed that regressive left are there again on the forefront fighting for that? Because they're always looking for ways to devour something.
Actually.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Rick.
No, it's all right. I wasn't sure if you'd managed to come back on. I saw there for a second you had dropped. I have seen that they have been all over this whole Muslim, basically the flood of Muslims, as I like to call them. I have a little bit I'd like to talk about with that when we come back from the break, because I actually heard a news story this morning that was talking about somebody that was complaining about the extended vetting that President Trump has started. And I'd like to get you guys' input on that. But we have hit the what would technically usually be the bottom of the hour, but since we got a late start, we're at about 3/4 of the hour. But we're going to have to take a really quick break. Pay some bills. When we come back, more with our guest and more talking about the fact that the communist ideology, while it looks great on paper, usually doesn't survive common practice. This is Robinson and Wright. We'll be right back here in just a few minutes.
To our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're live right now on KLRNradio.com. Now, we've had a couple of folks that have been trying to Skype in to add to the conversation. For some reason this evening, it's not letting me add anyone else to the group call, so I don't think we're going to be able to take any callers this evening. I do apologize. Now, actually, I had said when we came back from the break, I wanted to talk about a news story that I heard today, but I was taken to task by our guest while we were on commercial break, so I'm going to give him a chance to come back and say what he said on the air, which is awesome. I like the fact that we actually can have conversations and disagree. He called me to task because I said communism looks good on paper, and he basically told me I was crazy, and I'm going to let him explain more now.
Yeah, well, not crazy, but incorrect, because...
you haven't known me long enough. You'll agree I'm crazy soon. It's okay.
Okay. Well, if that's how you like, that's great. However, the whole idea of communism, it's really bad idea on paper. It's even worse idea in practice, because the idea of communism, it's not equality, as they say. It's not social justice and all the fancy, beautiful words they're talking about, the unicorns and all the beautiful stuff. The real idea about that is, like we talked about feminism, is superiority. As capitalists, they say capitalists oppress the proletariat. So the idea of socialism now, socialists will be, the proletariat now will be on top of capitalism, will be oppressing them. So that if you studied anything, if you know anything about Marx, he used socialism and communism interchangeably. So that's why it's always funny for me when socialists say, well, but it's not real socialism, it's democratic socialism. And I tell them, okay, smarty pants, tell me please, what was the original name of the Communist Party in Russia? Do you guys know what was the original name?
No, I don't.
Russian Socialist Democratic Workers' Party.
Wow, I had no idea. That's kind of scary.
Yep, that's the Social Democrats, or like they say, Democratic Socialists. That's who they were. They then later on, when they did the revolution, and now they say, okay, we're going to call it Communist Party because we already established socialism, and now we'll be the vanguard of the socialism. So those people that actually finally, they became a new man, they became the renewed person who can be right now equal with everybody else, and now we're going to call them communists. So it was special membership. Not everyone in Soviet Union was a communist. There was actually a very small percentage of the USSR population that were admitted to the Communist Party. But as you know, that the story about the animal farm, as they said, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So like I said...
that sounds... I have my a family member who is Persian. He came from Iran. And the majority of Iran is not only does not agree with the Ayatollahs, a good chunk of them are Christian, which is what he is. Iran is run by the minority.
Same thing
with Russia.
Yep, exactly same thing. When they took the power, they were, in fact, if you study the history again, there was a Kronstadt when a big part of the military navy, they said, you know what, we want socialism without communists. So that's what they were. We want democracy without communists, because they saw what kind of crazy things they were doing. And so, unfortunately, Lenin used power to brutally destroy that uprising. And there was many other uprisings. You don't hear about it, but there was dozens of different uprisings throughout Russia. And then, of course, there was a civil war where they were fighting the whites and they were fighting others. They had wars from 1918 until late 1920s. They were still putting down the fires to make sure that they have absolute power. And then, of course, when Stalin came to power, he sent to Gulag and murdered millions and millions upon millions of people again. I calculated socialism in the last 100 years, the socialist ideology, like I told you, an immoral ideology of theft, violence, envy, and greed, murdered more than 100 million people combined. Maybe by very conservative estimations, 100 million. By not so conservative estimation, up to 200 million people in the last 100 years perished because of the socialist ideologies that were practiced in different countries to different degrees. You have to also remember that You have to also remember that Nazi Germany was also socialist ideology. Nazi stands for the National Socialist Workers' Party. So there's two brands of socialism. There's international socialism, which is Lenin and Trotsky. Then there is a statist socialism, which is Stalin and Bukharin, I think. And then there is a national socialism, which is Hitler and Mussolini. All of those ideas, they're still socialist ideas. And like I said, all of them based on envy, greed, violence, and theft.
You're absolutely right. And all of these so-called, I don't even know what to label it anymore. These alt-righters in this country now that literally support what Hitler did and everything else. And when I call them socialists, they call me an idiot. And I'm like, no, you're a socialist. If you are supporting National Socialism, you are a socialist.
Yep.
It's there's left-wing socialism and there's right-wing socialism. There's and they both come around the backside and join together. It's the same thing.
And that thing I just want to ask you guys, because for me, when I look at the spectrum, and I'm dubious of the spectrum left and right by now, because sometimes it looks like a circle or sometimes it looks like a circus. But if you look at that left to right, from what I understood, the absolute right would be anarchism. And then, of course, absolute left would be dictatorship. So I don't understand who came up with the idea to call Hitler right, like fascism is right-wing ideology. I really don't understand, because fascism comes from fascio, which is Italian word for a bundle. A bundle basically is a collectivist idea. It's collectivization. The collective or socium or socialism is the whole core idea of socialism, because it means that it's collective over the individual. So collective rights over individual rights. Collective property over individual property, collective interest over individual interests. So, and if you have to understand, anytime you have socialism, you always reduce an individual freedom. So I really don't understand. Maybe you guys could explain to me who came up with the idea that fascism is the right-wing ideology. It's absolutely left-wing ideology.
No, you're absolutely right. And we're seeing right now in this country fascism from both sides, which tells me, I mean, I sit in the middle of all of it, and it tells me that I'm right, but I'm told I'm left, but by the left, I'm told I'm too far right, and it makes me realize that in general, I'm right. I mean, it drives me nuts. I mean, to watch people that will actually sit there and praise Hitler and call themselves right wing, and it really isn't. It reaches right around. It reaches right around to the left side of everything. Socialism is socialism, no matter how you break it down.
Once again, look at the history. So in Germany, there was a fight between National Socialism and International Socialism, and National Socialism, and they were fighting for the same block of voters, and basically for the same country. And of course, National Socialism won in the face of Hitler. In Soviet Union, we had exactly the same situation. We had the International Socialists, which were led by Trotsky, and then we had Stalin, who was actually statist socialist, which is actually, if you look at that in a way, it's a brand of National Socialism as well. And as you can see, they were very similar to each other. You know, they were really meant for each other. And so, if you know the history, Stalin actually called Trotsky a fascist. Did you know that?
Yeah,
That was the reason to actually push out Trotsky and the opposition out of control of the party. Trotsky was very, very popular. He was actually in charge of the Red Army. He was the original guy in charge of the Red Army, but later on Stalin pushed him out. And so this whole thing. So people tell me, like, I tell them, look, fascists were socialists, and they say no. Fascists killed socialists. I say, yeah, they were fighting for the same spot under the sun, for the same block of voters, same thing that they did in Russia. Once again, it comes back to prove my point. Socialism is an immoral political ideology of theft, violence, envy, and greed. They cannot help each other but to fight among one another or to fight somebody else. In fact, if you look at that, that's the difference between one part of political spectrum to the other. So there's one which we call leftists. They never have peace. They're always fighting for something. They're always irritated. They're always arguing. The only time they're kind of quiet is when they're on top. And then there's another part, which now they call conservatives, because this is the people that just want to have a regular life. They want to have a family. They want to have a business or a job or a career. They want to do something good for the community. They want to go have a recreation, etc., etc. And we only fight when we actually pushed into the corner. And that's right now what's happening right now. Finally, people say, you know what? That's enough. We don't want it anymore. And that's why we have so much. Like I told you, I was just a regular guy, just want to mind my own business and take care of my own stuff. But this craziness from the left pushed me and said, you know what, it's time to speak up. It's time to find a way to express my voice and say, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Tim Ferriss of the 4-Hour Work Week fame, he calls these people bigoteers because, they call everybody bigots, whoever doesn't agree with them. And so he came up with the word bigoteers because he said social justice warriors, or SJW, it actually doesn't carry enough negative connotation. So I decided to adopt it as well, and I hope, guys, you can adopt it as well. We need to start calling them bigoteers, bigoteers, bigoteers.
No, I like that, and you brought up a point with socialism. I mean, there's a company that's doing business here in America, and it's a great company, Volkswagen. People don't even understand where Volkswagen came from. That was one of Adolf Hitler's big things.
Yep.
It's the people's car. Mm-hmm. The Volkswagen Bug was created so that everybody in Germany could own a car. It was the Yugo. It was the original Yugo. It was a car that everybody could afford. We're going to give you a car. It was a state-run company that was created between Hitler and Dr. Porsche. People don't even realize that the engine in a Volkswagen Bug is a Porsche motor. That was, Porsche could have his car company as long as he created a car that everybody could own. That's socialism. Yes, you can have your company, but this is what you're going to do. You can keep your company, Dr. Porsche, and you can design your cute little sports car, but you are going to make a car that everybody in the country can own. That's the government telling a company exactly what they're going to do. That's socialism.
It's a different spectrum of socialism. So we got in Soviet Union, government actually owned every single manufacturing facility of any kind. So that was their way. That's how they run socialism. In Germany, they run it differently. And as you know, as National Socialism collapsed, we've got social democracy coming out of that. Germany has a lot of that. They hold all those ideas. They all those ideas actually came even earlier from Bismarck, but it's the same ideas that also end up in Sweden through Bernstein and Norway and Finland, etc., with a really thick safety net. However, I've been to Nordic countries. What I've noticed that a lot of people seem to, at least they come across as depressed, and everyone is always complaining about high taxes.
Yeah, well, high taxes go along. I mean, we're seeing it here. I mean, that's why companies are leaving. It's over the last 8 years, the exodus of companies from the United States has been astounding. I mean, companies that they basically said, well, you're going to keep taxing me. I can't do business here anymore. I have shareholders, and shareholders that are maybe even rallying against it. Who knows? But I mean, I've watched my mom. My mom has her retirement is based on her investment portfolio. And the investments that are doing the best for her are the ones that have left. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It is not the way it's supposed to work.
The thing what a lot of people don't understand. So it's that socialism actually is cancer. Yes, a little bit of cancer is not going to kill you next day. So, but in medical profession, they understood already. You don't want to wait till stage 4 cancer, because then you're definitely going to die. So it's the same thing with socialism. Once you start little by little, it's not going to kill you right away. And if you can mitigate the damages a certain way, you can it's going to survive a little bit longer. But what I noticed in Soviet Union is a very good example of that. Socialist project or communist projects, because it's one and the same, don't make it past 80 years. You look at any of them, they're not going to make it past 80 years. So right now we have really big problems with Social Security, Medicare, etc. That's one of the reasons why they tried to change that. Well, when did FDR brought it, the New Deal? When was it? 1930s, right?
Yep.
Yeah, mid to late 1930s. Well, guess what? We're right at the verge of 80 years, and this whole project just doesn't work. If everyone tells us that if we don't change something, either they have to raise retirement age or they have to reduce they have to do something, because the way their program was designed is going to collapse on itself. And that's what happened to the Soviet Union. Instead of being proactive, they didn't want to be proactive. They kind of said, well, it's going to work out in the end. And guess what? It didn't. Other countries looked at this and said, you know what? We should not go that far. Let's figure out how we can mitigate the damages. And like I told you, so China and Vietnam, what they've done, they actually opened up their markets. So they are still socialist in their government structure, but they are actually capitalistic economy. And then, of course, Cuba decided not to do that. I've been to Cuba about a year and a half ago. The way people live in absolute abject poverty. When Soviet Union left them, after breakup of Soviet Union, all the support of Cuba was left. They told me they ate almost all the rats and any other animals on the island. Right now in Cuba, if you kill a cow, listen to this very carefully. If you kill a cow, it's 10 years in prison.
Wow.
Wait, you get 10 years in prison for killing a cow?
Yes, for slaughtering a cow.
So wait, is that Cuba or India? Just curious.
That's Cuba.
Okay, just checking. Because, in India it would make sense because cows are sacred. I'm not sure what's going on with Cuba.
Yes, but in Cuba it's because again, it's because the economy, the way they ran it, they just ran it so much into the ground that they're skinny cows. They're right now punishing people for slaughtering their own cows. It's 10 years in prison.
Shouldn't they be happy they're slaughtering cows, though? Because, that lowers methane. I'm just asking.
Well, the thing is, the problem is because there's not enough beef. They cannot afford to buy beef anywhere else. So to be able to afford, for the Communist Party to be able to afford beef, they make sure that nobody else has beef. And that's exactly happens every time. Once you start rationing, anything you start rationing, there'll be people that figure out how to get more of that, and the rest of the people will suffer. And that's the problem, like with socialist idea of the medical care. I don't know if you check the news, but right now the socialist medicine medical system in UK is collapsing. They're going through right now. Really, they show documentaries. I've seen a documentary where people are dying while they're waiting in lines to get help. If you have something that is not critical, forget about it. You're gonna wait not months. You're gonna wait years so somebody will take care of you. It is. Anytime you bring the government to try to ration anything, you're gonna have a problem where people actually are gonna get less of that. Remember, anytime socialists try to introduce something, they always get the opposite result. You instead of getting more medical care, you get less medical care. Instead of getting cheaper medical care, you get more expensive. Instead of getting better, you get worse. Look at Obamacare. We just have a glimpse of that.
Yeah, and well,
No,
I'm going to say, actually, I think Obamacare was supposed to be the first step to get us to that point, but I hope we have managed to pull the plug on that quickly enough, but I'm still not quite so sure. We have come back around to the top of the hour, so we're fixing to take a really quick break. Now, Dimitri, I did want to throw an interjection in here. We actually have a message from our station manager, Miss Ann, who actually wanted to let you know that she has actually been to the USSR. It looks like she went sometime in the early 90s. I think it was right before things started kicking off and making transitions. However, she wanted to say that everybody she met was great, but in her opinion, the government had to go. So she wanted to make sure that I got that in there for her. And at this point, we're going to take a really quick break, pay some bills. We're back around to the top of the hour, so hour number 2 coming up here in just another moment, right here on KLRN Radio and the Robinson and Wright Show. We'll be right back here in about 5 minutes or so.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Support the Y at ymca.net. The Y, for a better us.
All right, folks, welcome back. This is the Robinson and Wright Show coming to you live right now from KLRNradio.com. We have our guest who has actually lived through communism in the USSR. Believe it or not, in all places, Siberia. He actually joked, and I can't remember if it was on air or off, that everybody'd always said, "Isn't that where bad people go?" He said, "I was born there, so what does that make me?" All right, so anyway, we have been having a pretty long discussion. Now, for just a second, I want to backtrack because there was a point last hour where Dimitri had mentioned he wanted to know who came up with the idea that fascism was a right-wing tendency, and I think that goes back to something that you had said earlier in the first hour about all of the words that were hijacked, shifted, or overused by the left to change their meaning, and I think that was one of the first instances of that happening. I just didn't get a chance to interject that earlier because you guys were having a really good conversation, and I didn't want to interrupt, so...
That's good to know. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's the idea of them changing everything. And one thing also, since we're talking about regressive left, one of the big cornerstones of their ideology and how they function is victimology or oppression Olympics, you can call that. But I call it victimology. There's the whole idea that there's victim and there's victimizer, and they have to portray themselves as they're standing beside the victim. But the reality is they're not standing beside the victim. They're using some situations to their advantage. Booker T. Washington is one of my heroes. He's a scientist. He invented peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yep. So I have his biography. I really respect him. And the reason I respect him because he never allowed victimology, that victim mentality, to penetrate his mind. He always spoke against it. He spoke to his fellow Black Americans that they should not allow victim mentality to penetrate them because it's going to ruin them. One of his quotes I pulled up here, he said, "There is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partially because they want sympathy and partially because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose their grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs." What do you guys think about that?
No, I agree with that. It's, and you and I, when we were off the air there for a while, we talked about the McConaughey thing.
Correct.
And he came out and said, "Look, it's over. You know what? He's our president. Let's get behind him." Now, I saw something on social media yesterday, I think it was yesterday, where they literally called for him to not get any more work. And when I said, wait a minute, because of his political leanings, you think he shouldn't work? And they said, no, I didn't say that. I said, well, yes, you did. They said, well, we should just boycott his movies. I said, that's not what you said. You said straight up that we need to make sure he gets no more work. That's, I mean, to me, whether I like Matthew McConaughey or not, that's terrible. You're going to call for him to not earn a living anymore because of his political beliefs? That, to me, that's the way I see communism. It's targeting and attacking somebody for not agreeing with your political views. And this stuff needs to stop. It really needs to stop. I actually like him. I think he's a pretty good guy. He's a little wacko, but I think he's a good guy. And what he said was right. He said, whether you agree with the current president or not, it's time to give the guy a chance. It's time to say, let's hold his feet to the fire when he's stupid, but let's give him a chance. Not everything he's done is bad. It's time to try to fix things. If that's what he's trying to do, that's great. I don't agree with everything he does, but you know what? He's there. He's our president. What we need to do is lift him up and hope that he does what's right for this country.
That's been my hope so far.
Absolutely. I'm the same way, because people asking me, well, if Trump would have lost, you would also say, not my president, to Hillary Clinton. I said, never. Barack Hussein Obama was my president, even though I didn't like much of his policies. And really thinking about his presidency, in my estimation, he is the worst president ever. If you subtract that he was black, and if you subtract above average ability to speak when he has a teleprompter, what he has done that was any good? He was a complete disaster on the international stage. and he was pretty abysmal domestically. We had the slowest recovery in history after Great Depression. And of course, as you know, after Great Depression, we had another Democrat that slowed down the depression, that slowed down the recovery. We had less than 3%, barely 2% economic growth in the U.S. for the last 8 years. I really don't understand why they still think that he's such a great president. You guys have any opinions on that?
Well, yeah, I don't think he's. I mean, I sit there and watch what he's done for the last couple weeks, and some of what he's done has impressed me. To watch conservatives that complained and moaned about Obama's executive orders, and then watch Trump come out with really more executive orders in the first 2 weeks than Obama did in his whole presidency. It bothers me a little bit. And at the same time, some of them, I believe, are very justified. I'm not, I get so much crap. I'm totally not on board. But when he does something that I agree with and I'm happy with, I will let it be known. And I think the problem we're having right now is a lot of people were completely and totally never Trump. Trump cannot be the president. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's great. He's not. But he is president. I mean, it is what it is. And I'm hoping he doesn't completely screw it up. Because if he does, all that does is that gives the left the ammunition they need. So far, I think their ammunition is crap. I don't think he's done anything wrong. I don't agree with the amount of executive orders that have gone out. But, this whole thing with the quote-unquote ban, it's not a ban. It's a continuation of a law that Obama put in place. And it's a 90-day, let's see who these people are. What is wrong with that? I don't see what's wrong with the threats that we are under, making sure that the people that are coming in here are the people that we want to come in here. I don't see what's wrong with that. And it's not a ban. Well, it's not a Muslim ban like everybody wants to call it.
It's interesting that you brought this up because this was actually what I was going to talk about after the bottom of the hour break in the last hour. I actually have heard a few news stories. Funny point, Japan has actually made the same decision. They are not currently accepting refugees without extreme vetting and not allowing anyone into the country without very extreme background checks. However, no one seems to be rioting in their streets over it. Also, there has apparently been an impact in Somalia with the recent lengthening of the time frame that it takes to get refugee status now in the country thanks to Trump's executive order. And one of the people that is currently in Somalia now that was supposed to be in transit, actually, I think they did finally make it over. I heard an interview this morning where they were talking about the harrowing experience because they were kept for, I think they said it was about an additional 6 to 8 hours for screening while once they were finally allowed to make the trip. They were asked for their social media passwords so that people could go through and look to see what type of things they were posting. They were asked extensive questions about what they were doing here, what their plans were while they were here, etc. And, it was just completely terrible because, their trip got delayed for about 4 or 5 days and it took them an extra 8 hours to get through the whole thing. But it was terrible and we're fascist.
Yeah, no, we should be allowed to vet anybody coming into this country. I was involved in a discussion the other day with a guy, and I don't know how much I believe him, but he said he's involved in a group that is smuggling people in as Christians. It's basically just like, all we have to do is say they're Christians and they come through. I don't know if I believe that. But this guy on Open Timeline basically admitted that he's smuggling people. And if that's the case, I don't know what we can do about it. I mean, if a family is fleeing a country, I still believe they need to be vetted. But if you look at the busloads of people that have already been admitted under this deal we have going on, I watch the videos. It's almost all men between the ages of, say, 15 and 30. What happened to the women and children? I'm all for that. If there's a family with a mom and children and everything else, yes, they still need to be vetted, but let's give them a chance. But when it's all males between the ages of 15 and 30, I'm done with it. It makes no sense to me. And that's why I have zero trouble with this quote unquote ban that is, again, a continuation of a law that Obama put in place. And people tell me, well, the only reason he's doing that and the only reason it's those countries is because he has business interests there. I don't believe that. And I don't think anybody should, but they do.
Can I interject something, guys?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, you're talking about the Muslims, and we talked already about that regressive left right now, all gang-ho about protecting Muslims. Just a few things that I just want observation. So Obama didn't, I think through all the refugees that came from Syria, thousands of them were Muslims, and only about handful of Christians that were allowed into the country. And his reasoning was because I actually work also with an organization.
Okay, so
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you. Dimitri, you still there? Uh-oh, I think we might have lost Dimitri. Or did we lose Dan?
I'm here.
Oh, Dan's still here. I think we lost Dimitri. He kind of cut out there in the middle there. Let me see if I can get him back.
Well, I mean, what I wanted to add to that is I have zero problem with people coming into this country that want to be productive.
Am I back?
And
yeah, you're back, Dimitri.
Yeah,
welcome back.
I don't know what happened. It just got disconnected. Couldn't hear you.
Yeah, it's
Skype's been kind of nutty lately.
Yes,
I blame Dan. He jinxed it when his went nuts earlier.
So back to what I was saying. No one was saying anything that Christians were not brought to Syria. Like you talk about Iran, those places are historically Christian countries. So Syria has about, if I remember correctly, about 10% Christians. Iran also has a high population of Christians. and it's and they have long history being in those countries. So because Christians were not persecuted by the government, that's why they were not allowed by Obama. So right now, Trump, I'm glad that he reversed that. He said the minorities will be able to come in. And of course, progressive left is going nuts. Now they say this is discrimination against Muslims. So which doesn't make any sense. They should be protecting minorities, but they only, again, remember, they only for minorities when it helps them in pushing their agenda forward. If it doesn't help them, they could care less about that. Let me give you another example. Because of all the situation with so alleged hacking from Russia, I have a Russian name. So all my interactions in the last 2 months especially, I got so much hate. People call me all kinds of names. In fact, I probably have to go and change my name to Dmitry Putin's lapdog Nosarev. Because people call me all kinds of names. They send me messages, not life threatening, but still pretty nasty messages. And so it's interesting thing. So we have almost 3 million Muslims in the United States, and we have almost 3 million Russian Americans in the United States. Now you tell me, please, when's the last time there was a terrorist attack by a Russian American? When's the last time Russian American done anything to cause anyone harm on a scale that we've seen recently committed by radical Muslims? And of course, I'm a Russian American. I've never lived under Putin. I've lived in the United States for 20 years. I always said that Putin is a bad news, and no one listened to me until things starts happening. But right now, because I'm Dmitry, all the leftists they think they have a open season on me. If I would, they call me Putin's troll and they ask me how much I get paid, and I'm thinking like, how stupid is that? I mean, if I want to be a troll for Putin, I would at least call myself John Smith or Michael Johnson or something like that. I would never call myself Dmitry. It's just stupid to be a troll for Putin and being called Dmitry. So I'd always told them, I'm an American. What's your problem? And they started attacking me. I said, okay, I got it. You're bigot. You're racist bigoteer. So get out of here. I don't want to waste time. And so that's the whole point. So it's I posted when its thing came out, and actually, so I said regressive left logic. It's virtuous. It's evil to hate Muslims, but it's virtuous to hate Russian Americans. Go figure.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've seen it. It's this whole election cycle has turned everything so screwy that, and I feel bad for you because there are Russian trolls, but you're right. They don't use Russian names. That would be stupid.
It would be absolutely stupid. Exactly. Like I said, there's 3 million of us. And again, I'm not trying to be a victim. I hate victimology. So I'm just sharing facts. I don't need sympathy because I really don't care. It's just, just some kind of egg on the other hand, just finger me or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I'm just showing the contrast. So again, there's exactly this minority group size-wise, Muslims and Russian Americans. But leftists decided that it's good to defend Muslims, but it's okay to hate and to denigrate Russian Americans, even though we are the same size minority in the country. So this is just the stupidity that I'm showing. It's like we talked about it. Leftism is the borderline mental disorder.
I'm not even so sure I'd give them borderline. I think it's pretty much a full-on mental disorder.
I'm trying to be nice. That's the thing,
Yeah, but see, I'm one of the hosts. I don't have to play nice.
Yeah, I always have hope, that someday I will meet somebody from the left that actually will make sense. So far, I haven't met anyone. They have a lot of emotions. They have a lot of foam on their mouth. They have a lot of those bigoteering exclamation marks. But none of logically, anytime you start asking them, I've been blocked because I always try to have a conversation. I ask questions. I've been blocked by, I don't know, dozens and dozens and dozens of people from the left. Just every time I ask a question, it is just, if you look through my timeline, once in a while I post them. I usually take a snapshot of them blocking me, and I put it, and another one bites the dust. So I don't put them all because there's so many, but once in a while I put it there, because anytime you really ask them a question that they have to think through, they blow up. The only thing they can do is block.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much anytime you try to use logic, they tend to come unglued, and it usually ends in a block. All right, well, we've come around to the last break of the show, so we're going to have to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with our guest, who has been discussing the fact that he's grown up in USSR, the fact that he watched communism fail pretty much firsthand, and how it never really works anywhere it's ever tried. But don't ask the left that, because they'll tell you that communism and democratic socialism are like the best thing ever. But we'll talk about that some more when we come back right here on Robinson and Wright after this break. Don't go away.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Support the Y at ymca.net. The Y, for a better us.
All right, folks, welcome back. Well, believe it or not, we're already into the bottom half of the last hour of the show. We've had a really great guest this evening who I do encourage to come back pretty much as often as he wants to, as long as we can get it scheduled. But we've been talking about the fact that the extreme left, the new liberal, are basically a bunch of nut jobs, and the fact that they seem to have communist, socialist leanings, and that when put in practice, those things never really seem to work very well. Now, Dimitri, you mentioned on the break that there was one last topic that you really wanted to make sure we got to before the end of the show, so unless Dan has anything to add, I'm just going to turn the mic back over to you.
No, go, Dimitri. I mean, what we talked about in the break was pretty amazing, and it pretty much puts everything we've talked about right there. I mean, the fact that what extreme socialism to communism does is it forces everybody to work. And you know, I was personally raised with my mother in the house raising me, and I worked my butt off to make sure that my kids, at least up through and until they were in high school, were raised by their mother being in the house. And what communism does is takes that all away.
Lenin said, "Give me your young generation, and I will bring socialism, communism." Basically, that's the whole idea. He knew that the young generation is important. If you notice, leftists are always trying to reach out to young generation before they form their opinions. They try to spoil their minds with the crazy ideas that they have. It's because that they know that people that live the real life, had a job, had a family, had kids, they're much less open to the socialist ideas because they know they don't work. They want to have freedom, they want to have choice, and they want to decide how they're going to spend life and money. It's interesting with socialism, even the light version, which is Sweden. I call this a light version of socialism. Still, you know that the conformity and collectivism still has influence. So, a friend of mine, who's a good friend of mine from Sweden, he's a Christian preacher. He came to U.S. and after a couple of weeks, he said, "You know what amazes me the most about America? You have the worst of the worst, and you have the best of the best, and everything in between. You have freedom. It's amazing." And what he's trying to say, you see, in socialist countries, they don't allow you to really have consequences of good actions or bad actions, or good choices or bad choices, or good goals and aspirations and bad goals and aspirations, because they want to even everything out. So now people that make horrible choices and have horrible goals for their lives, they actually don't do that bad. But people that actually have huge goals and huge aspirations and work very hard, they don't have much neither. So it's all kind of all the same. And so that's what he was impressed. In America, you have freedom. You can be the smartest hillbilly living in a mobile home that is 50 years old and making a couple dollars in the summer and just live like that. Or you can be a miserable multi-billionaire in everything in between. There is freedom. And that's what the most important, I think, that what we desired in Soviet Union. I still remember that. We wanted freedom. Because anytime you try to ration anything, and when you try to ration freedom, which basically that's what socialism tries to do as well, you create black market. And so in Russia, we had black market for everything, black market for medicine, black market for goods and services, and of course we had black market for freedom. So usually in public, people didn't smile, people behave certain way, like I told you, make sure that you don't get on the radar. But when they be by themselves, whether between 2, 3, 4 friends, when they either bottle vodka or coffee or tea, whichever beverage of choice they had, they would open up. And how they created the black market of freedom, they created hundreds of thousands of jokes about socialism, about communism, about communist government, etc., etc. And some of those jokes are so funny. For example, one of that I really like. What's the difference between democracy and social and democratic socialism? Is the same difference as between jacket and a straight jacket.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, we can go back to last night and the riots at Berkeley. Those riots weren't majority the students there at Berkeley. They were a group that wants to destroy anything Western. That's what they want. I mean, the Antifa, it stands for Anti-First Amendment. That's what they want. They want to take away free speech.
And this is where they actually align 100% with radical Islam and Islamism. Exactly, both ideologies, the regressive left and the radical Islamist ideology, both of them, they're bent on destroying Western civilization, which is actually built on Christianity and Christian morality.
Absolutely, and it's the whole idea. I mean, like I said earlier in the show, I'm not a big fan of Milo, but I'm a big fan of him being able to say what he wants to say. That's America. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. You should be allowed. And it happened again. That was, I guess, 2 nights ago. Last night in New York City, where a comedian who's a right-wing comedian wants to speak, and at NYU, and there's a huge riot, and everything gets called off. They're stifling speech. That is not America. They are doing everything they can to make sure that nobody that is Republican or right-wing or whatever you want to call them, and I don't even care if they're alt-right. If you're an alt-right guy and you want to speak somewhere, you should be allowed to speak. I don't care. If you're a left-wing guy and you want to speak somewhere, you should be allowed to speak. The end. They are doing everything they can. They call it the resistance, to make sure that nobody on the right is allowed to speak, that nobody on the right is allowed to have a voice, that it's complete and total. It's not even really communism. It's almost anarchy. They want to do away with everybody's rights that don't agree with them.
But we're back again. You see, it's violence and theft. And if you notice that with the last few days, we've seen that. They destroy things, they steal things, they're violent. It's in all it stems from greed and envy. Winston Churchill said so well. He said socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is an equal sharing of misery. And guess what? I've experienced that before, and I don't want to experience it again.
No, I know you don't. I mean, you grew up with it. Like you said, you grew up in Siberia. I can't even imagine, just not only it being communist Russia, but, I mean, you spent months without even seeing the sun.
Well, not really. First of all, again, don't make this mistake, even though it's specifically it's a socialist Russia. USSR is United Soviet Socialist Republic, and Soviets basically it's like democracy. So actually, better translation would be United Democratic Socialist Republic. That's basically what Russia was. So communism is the utopia. The idea of communism actually it's the stateless, classless, moneyless society. So basically, like I said, it's complete utopia. So there was never communism actually on earth, unless you count military communism that they had in Russia for about a year and a half or 2 years, and it didn't work out neither. So Siberia actually is not that bad. I've been to Canada, so it's basically like a poor Canada.
That's That's interesting. That's another reason why I wanted to have you on, because there's these, I mean, honestly, growing up, I had these visions of Siberia of being being hell, basically hell frozen over. That's how I was always given always been shown what Siberia was hell frozen over.
Well, you have to understand, Siberia, it's a region of Russia which is the size of continental U.S. It's 5 time zones. It's from Ural Mountains, which is actually all the way to Kamchatka. It's from the North Pole all the way to China and Mongolia in the south. So this is a very huge piece of land with very few people comparatively living there. So my guess would be, if I have to check, but I don't think there's more than 10 million people living in the whole Siberia.
Wow. Yeah,
so that's a huge territory. But because it's such a huge territory, we actually have different parts of Siberia. So northern Siberia, that's freakishly cold. I only visited once, and it was March, it was spring, and it was 46 below zero.
That's kind of ugly.
46 below zero?
46 below zero, that's their spring weather. So I went there once, I never want to go back again. I'm on the other hand lived in the southern Siberia, not far away from China and Mongolia. Well, when you say not far away, it means not like thousands and thousands of miles, just hundreds of miles from China and Mongolia. So we actually had, like I said, it would be more like a poor Canada. We had 4 seasons. Of course, winter was the longest season. We had a lot of snow. I would ski from the roof of my garage. I would make in my front backyard. I would make caves and igloos and things like that. So it was cold. In the southern Siberia, probably the coldest was 40 below. I don't remember anything below that. So usually 35 below zero, kind of normal temperatures in the winter, and probably 75 to 80 in the summer, and something between 50 and 60 in the spring and fall. So that's where I lived. So I didn't live in that, like you said, place where I see the sun only 2 days out of the year. So that's where I grew up.
I don't envy you. I can't imagine spending springtime in negative 46-degree weather skiing off of your roof.
No. Again, I didn't live there. I only visited once. Didn't ever want to go back. We had in the spring, like I said, probably 60, 65 in the spring.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said. My apologies.
Yeah. In fact, we had the Young Communist Day on May 19th, if I remember correctly. So the rivers would be the ice would be gone from the rivers and the lakes, and so only the bravest of the bravest would jump in a lake on the 19th of May. You probably, like I said, you probably have 65, 70 degrees outside, but the lake would still be very cold. So I was one of those that would jump in and swim around. So interesting thing also in Russia, Siberia, not many people become Christians. And one of the reasons is because they would have baptism in the middle of December. They called it baptism freeze. Usually it would be 35, 40 below zero. They would make a hole in the river. They would make a hole in a lake or the river. And here you go. You can get baptized if you're really serious about that. So there was a kind of belief that if you're a real Christian, you'll be fine. You'll not get sick. You'll not get pneumonia. You're not going to die. But if you're faking it, you're going to die.
Wow. Yeah, that's, I mean, I grew up in Chicago. We had the crazies that would actually go jump in Lake Michigan every winter. And
yeah, well, the thing is, like I said, that would be your baptism. I don't know where you stand on religion. I'm a Christian myself. In fact, I'm a missionary here in America, sent from Russia. But like I said, that was the way how you get baptized in Siberia, right in the middle of the winter in a freezing cold water.
Yeah, that's just nuts.
That's a heck of a baptism right there.
Yes. You remember it for the rest of your life.
I was baptized a Catholic, and I don't remember it because I was about 2 months old.
And I'm pretty sure it was not in freezing water.
Nah,
no, it was in the middle of a church, and I had some room temperature holy water dumped over my head.
I was going to say, Catholic baptism's cheating anyway. They do it when they're babies. It's room temperature, it's holy water, and they sprinkle a little bit over their head. I mean, that's not a baptism. Your pastor has to try to drown you at a baptism. That's how it's supposed to work.
You know your theology. I'm impressed.
Oh, all right. So anyway, we're down to about the last 8 minutes. Anything else particular you guys want to touch on?
Well,
I want to touch on the fact that, and you and I have touched on this, Rick, that though the current president was not my choice, and that I will still absolutely hold everything he does under fire. I'm not upset. I'm not upset like I thought I might be. And I think the reason is that I do see the left in this country still just completely losing their minds. And I, I'm not happy with our situation. But if the current president can hold it together, it may bode well for the future.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been pleasantly surprised by most of the decisions he's made so far. There are a few things that the jury's still out on for me. Actually, I came across a story that just posted through the Fox 25 local Facebook page here. One of the unintended consequences, I guess, of this travel restriction is I guess there was a 9-month-old infant who was traveling here for surgery, and as of right now is held up overseas at an airport while they try to determine whether or not he's actually going to be allowed to enter the country. So, I mean, there probably have been some unintended consequences of these restrictions, and I think some of it needs to be being handled a little bit better than it might be if stories like this are starting to come to light, because there's no reason to stop a child from entering the country for surgery.
No, I agree with that. But like we had the story the other day, the guy saying that his mom died because, and he didn't get to see her because of these restrictions. And the guy's own imam comes out and says, no, she died before all this happened. So there's a lot of fake news stories, and I hate using that term fake news. I really do. Yeah. But that right there was fake news. It was the media jumping on something, and the next day it's like, no, that really wasn't true. And it needs to get under control. I mean, the media will jump on something in a heartbeat without researching it. And that's another problem we have, and it needs to stop. Everybody will think I'm a crazy right-wing nut job, and I don't have it, and I wish I did. But the Blaze seems to be pretty balanced on what they report, and if you look at their stuff online, it doesn't get crazy, and it drives me nuts because I find myself getting most of my real news from blogs, but then you can't just use a blog as real news. I mean, it's really difficult right now. It just is. I mean, it drives me nuts. I feel like I don't have any real news sources.
Did you guys see the interview with the interpreter of Chris Kyle of the American Sniper fame and his wife, and Chris Kyle's wife? Did you see that interview?
No. I saw snippets of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
I think this was actually that sealed for me. I think this whole thing that Trump is doing is on track. The way he rolled out is questionable, at least. Actually, I would say it's botched rollout of the whole idea of what he was to do. At the same time, I see his reasoning. He said, that if we would just announce it, that in 2-3 weeks we're going to do that, then a lot of bad guys would come in, which is actually also makes sense. But Chris Kyle's interpreter worked with him for many years in Iraq. Came from Iraq, and he said, I understand that. I agree with that. There is bad guys there that actually want to harm America and Americans. And he said, I agree, it should be done. And so Chris Kyle's wife agreed with him as well. I mentioned my sentiment about it on Twitter, and of course, again, because my name is Dimitri, people said, well, you probably not, and you probably weren't born here, so how would you feel if they would do the same thing for Russians? And I answered honestly. I said, if America and Russia would be in a situation of war, or if Russia was going through a turmoil of changing government or riots or whatever, I said I would be all for it. You don't want people like that to end up in the United States. And the number one responsibility of the President of the United States, the federal government, is the defense of our borders. That's the number one responsibility. Federal government is not responsible to feed you. Federal government is not responsible to educate you. Federal government is not responsible to cater to you and to babysit you. But federal government is mandated by Constitution to defend the borders and to protect its citizens from the threats, especially externally. So from that stand, I think he's doing the right thing.
I 100% agree. It's you hit it on the nose that and that's why I think you and I ended up meeting. Is that group we met in? It's the Constitution wasn't set up to give everybody everything. The Constitution was set up for a federal government that gave us our basic needs, which our basic needs are infrastructure and military. And then everything else is supposed to be left up to the states. If you don't like what your state wants to do, leave it. The end. I mean, if California wants to do what California is doing, it's within their rights. That's the way the Constitution was set up. If my state wants to say no, if you're basically a man, you cannot go into a women's room, my state should be allowed to say that without consequences. That's not how things seem to be working right now.
No, it is not, and that's because common sense seems to be a thing of the past. All right, well, believe it or not, gentlemen, we've actually run long. We're about 50 seconds over the mark. So, Dimitri, if you don't mind, I'd like you, if you want to go ahead and remind folks of where it is that they can hang out with you and interact with you on social media, and then we'll start working on getting out of here.
I appreciate that. You already, you send information about me before the show, but if someone doesn't want to hear that once again, my name is Dmitry Nosarev, which is DimitriNosarev. I don't hide on social media. It's my Twitter is @Dmitry Nosarev, and all across the social media, I just keep my name, so I do not have any avatars or I do not hide anywhere. This is, you see, and whatever you see, whatever you hear, that's who I am. I'm trying to live a transparent life, and I'm trying to show that liberty is the most important thing. I'm so glad that I was able to come to U.S. And again, I fell in love with America and the spirit of America, an American dream, which gave me life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness without any restrictions. And when I see someone trying to take it away from me, from my family, from my friends, and from my fellow Americans, it boils my blood, and I want to speak up. And so thank you so much for giving me a platform to speak today. And hopefully I was able to reach someone today, and they will think about it. They will mull it. They will decide that freedom and liberty is more important than getting few pennies from the government.
From your lips to everyone else's ears, sir, I hope they actually start to feel the same way, because it seems like lately everybody's had the exact opposite idea. Who cares about freedom as long as the government's handing out pennies? Dan, do you have a social media account to give out, or are you still in twit mode?
No, I do. You can follow me and listen to my ranting and raving at Wright1Dan on Twitter. At least at the moment.
Nice. All right, folks. Well, we're going to get out of here again. We've run a little bit long. We do have the Rhino Report dropping next as soon as this finishes, so make sure you hang out for that if you are so inclined. I really, really, again, want to thank our guests, sir. It has been an honor having you here. You are welcome back anytime. I know that I have a couple of other station folks that are desperately trying to get to talk to you. They keep trying to call in tonight, and because of, for some reason, I guess Skype is limiting the number of people that you can have on a group call now, which is a new thing. They didn't used to do that as far as I know. But anyway, we are going to get out of here, folks. Take care. Have a great night. God bless.